Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hassett Sabbath Fellowship. We're virtual only. We're based out of St. Paul, Minnesota. The phone number does work if you'd like to contact us. We do the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence. We try to solve a little piece of revelation each week. This week, it's going to be Revelation, the fifth seal, which is chapter 6, verses 9 through 11, and what hastens the demise of the saints. So I've got a couple of prophecies. We'll jump into them right away and see what you think of those and see if that will hasten things. So the first one is the Essene prophecy, where they say 2025 is the last Jubilee. So in many ways, that would mean that we would go into the Messianic age. Now, I'm a huge 2017 guy, okay? But if you remember, nothing much happened in 2017. So, and I go back to 1867 and actually 1217, 1117. I mean, 1517 was huge if you want to nail 95 Theses on Wittenberg Castle Wall. So anyway, the point is I'm wrong, okay? And I'm forthcoming on this. I've been wrong a few times over the years. I'm not prophesying this. This is a prophecy more from Ken Johnson. He's the guy that's kind of worked on this, although this was published by somebody else here. I put the link next door there, so if you'd like to snip it and go find it yourself, you could. The main thing is the Essenes were called the sons of light. The Pharisees were called the sons of darkness. The Essenes kept the sacred calendar, a 364-day calendar of the holy days according to, say, Adam up to Moses and King David. They were able to come up with the exact year when the Messiah's life would be taken from the books of the prophets, and they believed that Jesus was the Messiah. They predicted his death to be 32 Common Era. And once again, Ken Johnson purports this. He pushes the Essene calendar. I've looked at it in the past, and because Ken is such a rapture hawk, it's hard for me to get. When he's doing his talks, he'll translate something and say, that means it's the rapture, and I don't like that, okay? Because if it's nonsensical, I'm going to point it out. But he's obviously being paid by somebody to push the rapture, and, that blesses his ministry. And I've bought some Ken Johnson books over the years, so just keep that in mind, okay? The Essenes also, according to biblical interpretation, said that the very last Jubilee, a 50-year period, and there's Mark Biltz. I love Mark Biltz. He's a 49er. He believes that 50th year is part of the next 7 years, okay? He's totally wrong, but he's a brilliant man. He's the best researcher out there. So he's saying it will begin in 2025. Well, it would have to begin on Yom Kippur of 2025. I'll show you a slide in a second here. So they would say that would be 5,950 years since creation. Okay, interesting. And that means in 2075, we would be deep into the millennium. And very interesting. So a day is like 1,000 years. So the 6th day of creation kind of work out that way, and we go into the millennium then, the rest 1,000 years at that point in time. So the other prophecy, that was interesting though, 2025, that would collapse everything down real quick, okay? This one is Diocletian, and he was the emperor in 303. Okay, so he was around in 284, but then he imposed the persecution in 303, and this is the last great persecution against the Christians. Okay, and so this person prophesied this on Saturday, November 25th, the day after, well, kind of 2 days after Thanksgiving. She woke up or became wide awake in the morning. The Lord gave her a vision. I was not at home where she lives now. I was at a motel room, and we were observing what was happening. In the vision, I saw a piece of paper coming down from above, and it softly landed on something like a desk or a countertop. The paper had a number on the top of it. I couldn't see the number. It's 303, okay? And making out the writing, I couldn't make out the writing on the paper. Someone said, because of this number, this is going to happen. I knew this person was talking about rent going up. Another piece of paper came down from above with a number on the top and some writing, but I wasn't able to see the number or what was written on it again. And I heard the person say, your rent is going up again because of this number, 303. This happened a couple more times at a rapid pace, with the paper coming down from above with different numbers on them, and the person saying, there have been more findings. Your numbers have changed, and your rent is going up even more. That's inflation. That's the third seal. We'll cover that when we get to the third seal slide. That's about 8 slides from now. The last piece of paper that came down from above with a number, and the writing was different. This time I was allowed to see the number, and the number was 303. Okay, I'll explain it again, but you're looking at it on the right-hand side. Diocletian is 303. That's that great, horrible persecution of Christians, where the lions are devouring people. Okay, so this will be used against the people to change their credit and social score numbers. I knew in the vision that it had everything to do with the new credit social score ratings that were beginning to happen. I knew that we Christians were going to be squeezed out of the system at an alarming pace. That's the fifth seal, people. Okay, I woke up with the year 2025 on my mind. I'm not saying that the year that's the beast system year or when it starts. I do believe the year 2025 starts very difficult hardships, and I would agree with her on that. I mean, even at the least, if all it is difficult hardships, then it still makes sense on everyone. What the Lord, take it to God on this, and her name is Cindy, but basically she's saying whatever you saw in 303 Common Era is going to start occurring now, and it's going to be very quick. If the Jubilee year is 2025, it would happen very, very fast. We'll go through the years and the timing, and I'll kind of show you my timing slides in just a little bit. So let's look at 2025. If we were going to go into Great Tribulation, or Tribulation first, then Greater Tribulation after that, the last 3.5 years. Yom Kippur is October 2nd. Okay, of 2025, and then I would say around November 7th is that time frame of Cheshvan 17, which is when Noah had the flood start, and so that would be a perfect time. It usually takes you out about, and I didn't run the numbers, takes you out 7 years later to a Yom Kippur or something like that. 7 years later. So that would be 2032. And keep in mind, I've never been a 2032 guy. I'm kind of a purist. I wanted Yeshua to be, die and resurrect on 30 Common Era. So it would be 40 strings, these little red strings that turned white and didn't after 30 Common Era. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're all wrong. Maybe it was 32. Maybe people were hiding years. I don't know. If it's 32, hey, you know what I'm wrong again? So just go ahead and slap my hand. I mean, I don't mind being wrong. I'm not predicting anything other than I'm observing and I'm showing you some prophetic words. Okay, so once again, the Jubilee is set up this way. And Mark Biltz disagrees with me on this. That's fine. You know what? Jonathan Kahn happens to agree with me on the Jubilees. It doesn't matter. We don't talk that often. Trust me. I talk to Biltz about every 6-8 months, and I've talked to Kahn one time, and I really didn't feel led to work with him at all. So you are to count 7 Sabbaths of years, 7 times 7 years. That is 49 years. Then on the 10th day of the 7th month, on Yom Kippur, you are to sound the blast of the shofar. It doesn't say what kind of a blast. It doesn't say. Normally, you would sound the blast earlier maybe, and then at the end, that's when you blast the great shofar, the last great shofar at the end of Yom Kippur. That would be that tekiah in the Hebrew, and it would be selpings in the in the Greek, selpingus and pingus. It's a gamma nasal. So you are to sound the shofar all through your land, and you are to consecrate the 50th year, not 49, Mark, the 50th, okay? And that's not part of the next 7. It's the 50th year. It's a cap, okay? And I can prove interesting theories, conjecture, of course, every 490 years and every 500 years throughout history. There are just patterns that work on both. So you proclaim freedom throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a Yovel, that is the Jubilee, for you, and you are to return everyone to the land he owns, and everyone is to return to his family. Leviticus 25, 8 through 10. Once again, was I right with 2017? Not so much. Now you know why my book isn't being pushed. Sorry. Okay, so we do the philosophy. We try to give you the Bible as accurately as possible. We give you prophecy as accurately as possible. This is going to be the 5th seal in martyrdom. Then we go through the news and what's going on. We do the philosophy of the end of days. We don't do the news. We do the thought. Okay, so if you want to study the end of days, you have to kind of get some things straight. You have to understand Judaism, especially in Daniel's time and in John's time, because John wrote Revelation. So what was important to them was the holy, the Tamid offerings. They happen twice a day. So just keep this in mind, that if you don't know these things, find people that do, or start reading about them. So when you get to a verse like this and you don't know, and you automatically say, go, and okay, I'm bashing the SDAs, but they've jumped on this particular verse of Daniel 8:14, and they said, he said to me, for 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the holy place will be properly restored. Okay, so she said, oh, well, that's 2,300 years. No, it's not even 2,300 days. It's neither. It is Erev and Vavoker, and that would be evening mornings. It's 2,300 and exactly Tamid offerings, the continuous offerings that need to occur. It's sacrificial. It's how we count down every day of Tamid offerings until we get to the Sabbath. And so that's just how you think. You have to think like Daniel and John. Otherwise, you're going to lose out, and you aren't going to see that the Kodesh, the sanctuary, would be vindicated according to the Orthodox Jewish Bible. And boy, that's correct. So start thinking, or get around people that think like this, so that you can properly interpret these verses. So when you jump in to Revelation chapter 6, you're thinking like a first century Jew, or like Daniel. Both of them were fixated on restoring the holy, which is the Tamid offerings. And so all of these things relate to Jewish concepts, or at least first century concepts so the first seal. Ready to go? The gentleman here that's riding our spirit, or whatever it happens to be, the rider of the horse, has a bow, no arrows, a Stephanos crown, which is not a diadem. It is more like a winner's wreath, okay? When you think of the bow, yes, you can think of that multi-picture that looks like a rainbow, that flag. And you can think of many other things. I happen to date it to 7/7 of 67, which is the war of 1967 in Jerusalem, because they gave back the Temple Mount. That's the seminal event. If you were a Jew like Daniel or John, that would be a huge date. You would be so unhappy with those non-believing Jews in Israel that they gave back the holy place and just kicked it down another 50, 60 years, okay? So anyway, the point is, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying, as if it were a voice of thunder, come and behold. And I saw, behold, a white horse, and he who was sitting on it had a bow, as I mentioned. So bow is toxon in the Greek. It's only found one time in the New Testament, but it's everywhere in terms of its Revelation 9:3. Revelation, how about Genesis 9:3, where the toxon is the bow in the sky. It's a sign of strength. It's not the simplest of fabric. Thank you, Strongs, for getting that wrong. It's keshet in the Hebrew, and that would be a bow of strength, and it would be, there are no arrows, so there's no prodigy. And so he comes against them, and he's given a garland, say, which is a crown, but it's a Stephanos, okay? And he went forth overcoming, that he may overcome. And I'm saying he's coming against Western civilization. I'll throw it back in your lap. Tell me if Western civilization isn't completely crumbling, okay? You've got 5 minutes to defend yourself, and you know it in your heart. Western civilization has nothing to fight for anymore. They don't want to fight for God anymore. They don't want to fight for their family anymore. They don't want to fight for their country anymore. They've got nothing to fight for, and so they're willing to give it all away. And when Western civilization falls apart, the world falls apart, okay? There's nothing to live for if you can't fight for God, country, family, other things like that. If none of that matters to you, the West falls, okay? And civilization falls, okay? Next, second seal. So the first one was West and Western civilization. The second one, the second seal, is red, and it's east of Jerusalem. I'm saying it occurred when the Bush boys got into office and said, let's start wars all over the place and make some money off oil. So 9/11/2001 signifies that. That was a seminal event, huge, just like 1967, during 7/7 of 67. Okay, when the Lamb opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, come, bow. Then another, And the Greek word is allos, and that would mean that it's just another. So when people come to you and say, well, the first seal is the Antichrist, you're wrong, okay? It can't be, because this is just the same as the other one. And if you go back and look at Zechariah 6 carefully, you'll see they're just all the same rider, or the same horse, or the same. Allos is that clue rather, that tells you that these are all the same four horsemen. There's no Antichrist in there. There's no blah, blah, blah. It is just another horseman and another horse. Okay, so allos, horse, came out, and it's a fiery red one. Not just a red, it's fiery red, okay? Very rare in the Greek to see it that way. Its rider's name was given power. Oh, by the way, that fiery red, and I'm blanking on what the Greek is, but when you go back to Zechariah 6, you will see the same fiery red there. So keep in mind, all the four horses are in Zechariah 6. In Revelation 6, fiery red matches up. Many of the colors match up very, very well. Okay, its rider was given power to snatch. You're going to say take, but it's really, in the Hebrew, it would be lakak, and that would be snatch. He's snatching peace. Look around the earth right now and tell me, I'll put it in your lap again. Tell me if peace is being snatched. Oh, baby, is peace being snatched from the earth to make people kill each other, and they're doing it. To him was given a large. Okay, so notice the sword. It's not just a sword, it's a machaira. And a machaira in the Greek is a shorter sword. It's not as long as the one pictured here, but it's one that's just given to the regular soldiers, foot soldiers, to go kill and slaughter. Just it makes blood, and that's what that sword does. But it is a large sword. So it doesn't have any special features other than you would be on your foot just slicing and dicing people next to you. Okay. All right. So now we move on to the third seal, and I'm dating that 7/28 of 2012. Okay. I know it was the summer of 2012 because I was part of the prophecy, but it's really inflation, and it's going to increase, intensify. It's going to be horrific. And so it's all about the scales denotes judgment. So when you hear other people like Polny saying, oh, it denotes whatever, they don't know their Greek. They don't know what they're talking about. Okay, and they don't know Hebrew, that's for sure. Okay, when I opened the Chotam Hashlishi, which is the third seal, I heard the Hashlish of the Hakayot, so the living creatures, the third of the living beings, saying, come and see. And I saw Hene, a black horse, and the one sitting on it had a pair of scales. Once again, according to the Hebrew scholars, it denotes judgment in his hand, Yad. And so it does play out well with Zechariah 6, which I've been citing frequently here. And I heard, as it were, a voice, a coal, in the midst of the Arba Chayot, the four living beings, saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius and the slosha. So basically, a lot for the wheat and the barley, and it's your day's wages, okay? And the denarius, for a denarius, so if you're poor and you earn a denarius each day, you're going to give that to be able to eat. It's inflation. It's horrible inflation. But touch not the shemen or the yayin, the wine. So oil and wine, because the wealthy, they don't care. They aren't going to care at all. And you'll see the hint on this in just a second, because in the Greek it's going to be edikesis, which is lo avanim. Do not harm these poor people. Give them food. But you can tell the wealthy, they've got the oil and the wine. They are going to willfully sin. God doesn't like that. God can handle, there are offerings and sacrifices and forgiveness for unintentional sins, but intentional sins like this one, that's being stingy and greedy, and man alive, is God going to bark over that. He doesn't bark, but he's going to be unhappy over this situation. So just keep that in mind. Very, very angry over that. Okay, that's the third seal. Fourth seal, I'm guesstimating again 12/19 of 2019, because a certain thing hit the earth at that point in time. It was diagnosed. You know what it is. And we went into all sorts of problems as a result of that. So the fourth horseman carries 4 death plagues. They're depopulation plagues. It's 2 billion people that would be gone. That would be caused by lower birth and by death. Okay, and so the lower birth can be caused from abortion, say, or it could be caused by just kids not getting together and having any interest in having children. Inflation, destroys the desire to have children. It just does. And we're having this horrific inflation right now. So once again, the first of the plagues is the Ramphea, which is the long sword. You must be on a sword or in a chariot to be able to drive it down. This sword, you know, the guy, Martin's a great guy. He does a nice job on his pictures. He doesn't understand. This is a sword where you're going to drive it into the chest cavity. It's a specialty sword with a bent blade. He's got a little bit of a bend in it, but basically, if you looked at the Ramphea in terms of the rabbinic content, especially describing it in Ezekiel 14:21, you would see mass invasions. Okay, and you're seeing mass invasions everywhere right now, people. You're seeing it. Okay, the next one is Limo, which would be famine, crop failures, no fertilizer, things like that. And, you know, they've got the agenda, which means no fertilizer for you, which means no food for the 8 billion people. That's how you get rid of people. Thanatos, the third one, is death. It can come from war or cancers. I don't know. But these are the big four of this. And then Therion. Therion is, so Thanatos is actually the name of the horseman. And Thanatos does mean death and does bring war and cancers. But Therion is interesting because when you look at it carefully in Acts, say 28, you'll see it's a small snake. And it almost kills Paul, but it doesn't. And then the pandemics, biological warfare, things like that. Okay. The fifth seal. Let's read this. When the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw underneath the altar of souls of those who had been put to death for proclaiming the word of God, that is, for bearing witness. They cried out in a loud voice, Sovereign ruler, HaKadosh, the true one, how long will it be before you judge the people living on the earth and avenge our blood? Each of them was given a white robe, and they were told to wait a little longer until the full number of their fellow servants should be reached, and their brothers who would be killed just as they had been. Revelation 6:9-11. That's the fifth seal. And basically, there is something interesting going on where they are put underneath that altar up in heaven, and very, very interesting, and then told to wait, you know. And so, when would this start? Well, if the Essene calendar and this other lady, this nice lady, are correct, we're jumping into this pretty fast, people. Okay, so it could be a quick start, and it would happen very quickly. The other seals, I'll show you the dates in another couple of slides here, and you can just see the breakdown of the timing. Okay, so why would we be killed? What's going on here? Let's give you some rationale. Why was Dietrich Bonhoeffer killed? Because he sided with the Jews. Okay, and he sided with what was right, what was God. And he, you know, I mean, he was raised in Germany, a good German boy, but yet he got it, okay? And Lutheran pastor. And this other guy in the middle there, he didn't salute to Hitler, you know? And so, good for him. God bless him. Corrie ten Boom, she suffered. Her sister died as a result of them being linked with Jews. So it's a death sentence that provides life. Why do some of us get it? I don't know why. I don't know. I have a Jewish soul. Other people do too. And part of it is just, you know, my father too. He taught me well. So yes, I'm not a dispensationalist, but yet I am very thrilled that there are dispensationalists that love Israel. It's a healthy thing to be. I'll give you the verses in just a second here. So, first of all, there's the first fruits. And so I think some of the people that are going to be dying here are going to be the first fruits going forward. So it's basically 2% of the overall amount of people dying. So the fact is that the Messiah has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have died. For since death came through a man, and also the resurrection of the dead came through a man, for just as connection with Adam, all die, so in connection with the Messiah, all will be made alive. He is the first fruits of the resurrection, but there will be first fruits in this death of many more dying later on in the Great Tribulation. Okay, so that's 1 Corinthians 15:20-22. So let's continue on. We've got when will this occur? And so I just want to point this out, that we're linked with the Jews, and so This is kind of that linking verse, just so you can see it. It's kind of, I won't tell you the story now because it takes too long, but Adonai Tezvaot says, in the future, peoples and inhabitants of many cities will come, and the inhabitants of one city will travel to another and say, we must go to ask Adonai's favor and consult Adonai Tezvaot. So he's the Lord of armies. I'll go too. Yes, many peoples and powerful nations will come to consult Adonai Tezvaot in Jerusalem and to ask Adonai's favor. Adonai Tezvaot says, when that time comes, 10 men will take hold, and I'm wearing my tzitzits right now, so basically they'll grab my, like, if I was, in this case, this is a Jewish guy. He's wearing his tzitzits, and they're going to grab hold, speaking in all languages of all the nations. That's kind of a link to Sukkot, okay? All nations, all languages, rather, will grab hold of the tzitzits of a Jew and say, we want to go with you because we have heard that God is with you, Zechariah 8:20 through 23. So basically what I'm saying is there's going to be the first fruits angle. There's also going to be people coming and wanting to be linked with the Jews. All right, I'll tell you the story. I'm going to run late anyway. So my favorite rabbi, Rabbi Feller in St. Paul, was asked to go out to Stillwater to meet with a man, and he wondered why, because he was a Gentile, a Catholic, and nice man, but he was dying, and he just kind of wanted to see Rabbi Feller with the tzitzits, and he just wanted to be the guy that grabs onto the cloak of a Jew and say, we want to go with you because we have heard that God is with you. So that's why we're linked. Okay, that's why. That's why. So the guesstimates of the seal timing, I'll give you that first, and then we'll go through the rationale of wanting to be linked. So the first horseman, 1967, June 7th, and the second horseman would be September 11th of 2001. Then the second horseman to the third horseman is once again 2001, 9/11. Then to June 28th of 2012. So you can see that third horseman moving along there. And so it goes from 12,516 days to 3,974. And then the next one from the third to the fourth is 2,701 days. And you can see it there from 2012 to 2019. And then the next one is the fourth to the fifth, seems to be about 2019 to 2023. And then if you want to have fun with it, you can say, well, then the next one after that might be 666 days to the sixth seal. Could be. Now, all of these are guesstimates. I was part of the prophecy for the third seal, and I'm filling in the details based on how the prophecy worked out in 2012 for the third seal. And you know the inflation is bad right now. So it's hard for you to, if I throw this into your lap and say, hey, tell me that inflation isn't bad right now, you're going to say it's bad. And it's much worse in poor countries. So keep that in mind. That's why they're streaming to the United States. Okay, so keep in mind also that, yes, we are linked with the Jews, and they're having horrible parades and things like that in Tel Aviv. We're still linked, and we're still hated. And I'll give you the verses on the next slide, starting out with that. But in the meantime, God has given them a spirit of dullness, eyes that do not see and ears that do not hear, right down to the present day. That's Deuteronomy 29:4. And David says, let their dining table become for them a snare and a trap, a pitfall and a punishment. Let their eyes be darkened so that they can't see, and their backs bent continually. That's Psalm 69:22, but that's also found in Romans 11:8 through 10. So we're linked. They can't see Messiah, but they do see Torah. And so we're linked. And also, Hitler didn't ask for the faith level or the faith type before he slaughtered the Jews or the Gypsies or the Russians. So just keep that in mind, that people are blinded right now. We'll all have the blinders taken off at some point in time. So here's the reason why I think we're linked. Okay? So it's going to come down to God created man in his own image. And its icon, which is the same thing as Revelation chapter 13. The image of the beast is the icon, or the zelem, and it's, icon is the Greek. So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, and the second part is, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. Genesis 27:21, 27, and 28. So first of all, he made them in his own image, and he created them, and then he said, be fruitful and multiply, the second aspect of it. We are linked forever with that because we believe that we are made in the image of God, and we don't want to change that. or have someone jab us and make the changes, if you know what I mean. And then we want to be fruitful and multiply, have babies, love the babies. Okay, to the woman he said, I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth. You will bring forth children in pain. Your desire will be toward your husband, and he will rule over you. And the man called his wife Chava, life, because she was the mother of all the living. So basically, we believe moms, dads, life, and to produce children, even though it's in pain, it's still, life. And so global fertility has collapsed. This is from The Economist, with profound economic consequences. And this is June 1st of 2023. So we believe in these things. This is why people will hate us, because we believe that we were created in the image of God, that she was the mother of all the living. There's creation. God created, mankind, Adam and Eve, the whole thing, hated for that. Okay. Then we also believe the demand of an accounting for the blood. So this is Genesis 9. This is the Noah story. Only flesh with its life, which is its blood, you are not to eat. You will certainly demand an accounting for the blood of your lives. I will demand it from every animal and from every human being. I will demand that every human being an accounting for the life of his fellow human being. So if you kill somebody else, it will be accounted of you. Whoever sheds the human blood by a human being will his own blood be shed. For God made human beings in his image. Once again, there's the image again. And then he also comes back. So 1 and 2, again, this is just like back on Genesis 1, 26 and 27. So God made human beings in his image, and you people be fruitful, multiply and swarm on the earth and multiply upon it. Genesis 9, 4 through 7. Interesting. So you see why we are hated, because these are basic things that God, these are covenants with God, and people hate us for that. Okay, another covenant, which is Genesis 12. And have you noticed that all of these covenants are early in Genesis? Okay, I will make of you a great nation, Abraham. I will bless you, and I will make your name great. You are to be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And by you, all families of the earth will be blessed, Abraham. And that's Genesis 12, 2 through 3. So you see how there are the blessings, and then you see the person with his foot up, and he'll pop up again in the slides. Don't worry. He put his shoe on the desk to embarrass the Jews. And so there are people that bless, and there are people on the right-hand side that curse. We want to be part of the blessing, and we'll be hated for it. Then continuing on to Genesis 15, by the word of Adonai came to him, this man will not be your heir, Ishmael. No, your heir will be a child from your own body. Then he brought him outside and said, look up at the stars in the sky and count the stars, if you can count them. Your descendants will be that many. He believed in Adonai, and he was credited. So Abraham was credited to him as righteousness for believing in Adonai. And so who was sacrificed? It wasn't Ishmael, it was Isaac, his son. So keep in mind the Akedah comes up in Genesis 22, but basically this is covenant talk, and we are credited our faith is credited as righteousness. So keep that in mind. Keep the faith. Okay, now we're going to move on to the sixth seal. So you can see why we are linked in with the Jews, and why if they're persecuted, we'll be persecuted too. Okay, so Earth Kings already know when the micronova is known. So look at the left-hand side, and you'll see the eclipses. Not only do they know that the sun isn't yellow right now, and they could have made it yellow, they made it whitish, which it is right now, and it's going to eclipse at some point in time in 2024. And then also you'll see, so the sun right now has been going from yellow to white, and then eventually they'll go to red, and you can see the red down below, and then to black, then micronova. And you'll see the lunar eclipse too, which is going to be coming up in 2025. I'll give you those slides in a second here. As I watched, as he broke the sixth seal and there was a great earthquake, that's a micronova event where it unlocks the crust. The mantle will break free. The sun turned black. It's not an eclipse. It's the final stage of micronova, where it kind of occludes based on dust kind of collecting on it, and then it blows that piece off, that sheath off, so it'll look like sackcloth worn in mourning, and the full moon became blood red. Next due is Adar 14, which is March 14th of 2025. The stars fell from heaven to the earth, micronova dust production event, just as a fig tree drops its bitter figs, and then when shaken by a strong wind, the sky receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved from its place. Revelation 6, 12 through 14, continuing on. Then the kings, there's kings and the rulers, they know when this event occurs. They know that they need to go underground. And so all these mighty people, even the slave and the free, hid themselves in caves among the rocks and the mountains, and said to us, the rocks and the mountains, fall on us and hide us from the face of the one sitting on the throne and from the fury of the Lamb. This is proof the rich and the poor will be aware of the sixth seal. So is it 2025? I don't know. But it's intriguing because they would know, and they're already mapping it out in The Economist magazine. Okay, so that's Revelation 6, 15 through 17. So the blood moon eclipses are going to be coming up here. Once again, March 14th is the first one due next. Then September 7th of 2025. And then both in 2025 and then 26 would be, there it is, March 3rd of 2026, and then when you get to 2028 and 2029, one in 2028, December 31st, very interesting. So keep in mind, there will appear signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth, nations will be in anxiety and bewilderment at the sound and surge of the sea, as people faint in fear. Luke 21, 25, and 26a. So, according to Mark Beltz, we have had 7, 8-ish of these eclipses like we saw in 2017, the next one coming up in 2024 across America since we've become a nation. So the Revolutionary War, then the post-Revolutionary War in 1778 and 1780, then the Civil War and post-Civil War, and a little bit more post-Civil War of 1860, 1869, and 1878. Then 1970, Vietnam War. Then post-Vietnam War with Carter, as 1979 eclipse. Then 2017, nothing. And then Mark Beltz is predicting war when it happens on Nissan 1 of April 8th of 2024. We'll see if he's right. So watch Mark. He did a great job. He's the best researcher out there. He's 5 times better than I am, that's for sure. So I'm blaming one person as he pulls things together. So basically, I'm saying that the certain person that honors the Pergamos Museum and the death of Antipas in Revelation 2:13. Look it up for yourself. According to the Talmud and Rabbi Abba Akiva, known as the Rav, taught that the Archangel Michael offers first fruits. Remember how I mentioned that before? It's a sacrifice on the heavenly altar in the heavenly temple. And so it's said about this passage that the sacrifice consists of the souls of the righteous. And so that's that fifth seal connection. Okay, it just seems to match. And I believe that this certain man who is quite evil, he hates God, and he hates Jews, and he really hates Christians too. He's going to pull things together and go off, and he is Gog from Magog, and he works for the guy that's pictured on the right-hand side. And so pay attention to this. He saw this young boy, Natan, saw this person as the anti-Messiah, not the anti-Messiah, but as Gog, and starting World War III. And this picture of The Economist from 2012, interesting how they have little demons in the sky fighting each other. The Israelis, I wouldn't agree with that, obviously, from my perspective. But the Hamas is listed as flying into Israel and fighting back in 2012. Very interesting people. Okay, so once again, it's worship with Antipas being killed in Revelation 2:13, and then also in 2008, and it's a fifth seal pattern here. It's worship, and this is that horrible freeze in Germany in the museum. Oh goodness, Pergamos Museum over in the Museum Island in Berlin, Germany. Well, and they only started 2 world wars so far. So basically, this man seems to be pulling it together, and he will be part of Gog Magog. So he would be the Gog character, and according to the Septuagint, he is described as a caterpillar, a locust king, and he is that kind of a guy. So he will pull together like a Moses figure and pull the caliphate together, and attack, and it will be a holy war. Okay, will you be worthy? Will you be able to fight? Will it be 2025? I don't know, but it's interesting. So finally then, after this, I looked, and there before me was a huge crowd, too large for anyone to count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language. That's a Sukkot type of a thing. Then they were standing in front of the throne, in front of the Lamb, dressed in white robes. Don't be naked, people, okay? You want white robes. Holding palm branches, that's a Sukkot sign, in their hands, and they shouted, "Victory to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." All the angels stood around the throne, and the elders and the four living beings. They fell face down before the throne and worshiped God, saying, "Amen. Praise and glory, wisdom and thanks, honor and power, and strength belong to God, our God, forever and ever. Amen." One of the elders asked me, "These people dressed in white robes," once again, you don't want to be naked. You want to be in white robes. "Who are they, and where are they from?" "Sir," I answered, "you know." Then he told me, "These are the people who have come out of the great persecution. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. That is why they are before God's throne." That's Revelation 7, 9 through 15. So this is a picture at the end. Okay, and Revelation 7 is very interesting that way. So that's where we're coming through. We have to get through that. There will be a great persecution. Whether it'll be 2025 or not, I don't know. We're in the birth pangs. We could be starting the fifth seal right now. It's possible. That would mean that the fourth seal would need to kick up a little bit more, and then we'll go into the tribulation at some point in time. Then we would go into the great persecution or the great tribulation for the last 3.5 years. We're not there yet. Once again, the clean garments. I harp on this every single week. You can't be naked. You need clean garments. You wash your garments in the blood of the Lamb to have them clean for the next coming, whenever it happens to be, 7 years after things start. Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or Sukkot, you have to have clean garments to get into the wedding. So get it done. Be blessed. Thank you for your time. Wow, this was long.